Hello FPL managers and welcome back for another video. My name's Jack and today we're going over our Game Week 35 wildcard template team or sort of team selection, where we have a look at the best wildcard team you can have for the rest of the season. Of course, even if you aren't on a wildcard, this video will be good just in terms of shedding light on players that will be really good assets to own for the rest of the season, which maybe don't have a massive ownership right now, which could give some good rank rises. As always, if you guys are enjoying the FPL videos, please drop a like and subscribe. We're trying to hit 12,000 subscribers by the end of the season, which is only a few game weeks away, so please help us reach that goal. As always, have the notification bells turned on as well, as there will be plenty more FPL videos coming your guys' way. And with that being said, let's jump into the video. So let's jump into this Game Week 35 wildcard team. This is going to be a 3-4-3 formation team. Obviously, a couple of players can be switched around depending on what fixtures you prefer this game week. But for me, this is my favourite starting 11. Looking at the goalkeeper, I've gone with De Gea in goals right now. I think goalkeeper options, there are quite a few picks that you could definitely go for. And I think since I do have De Gea in my team personally, there is potentially a little bit of bias towards De Gea. But nonetheless, I still think he's a really good pick. Obviously, Kepa, he's going to be a good option as well. You could go for Alisson and Edison. There are also some popular goalkeeper picks that I've seen a lot of people mention that they're looking to get in for their teams. But for me, I think De Gea, he's been in the best form in terms of picking up clean sheets for his club recently. 4 clean sheets in the last 5 for Manchester United, which is the best defensive record out of any of our Chelsea, Man U, Liverpool and Man City. So I think that's one thing De Gea's got going for him. He's also a lot cheaper than Alisson and Edison, only marginally more expensive than Kepa. If you can't quite afford this team, as you can see the squad value is around 102.5, you could potentially go for Kepa instead at 4.6. That does free up a little bit of money. But I still think that extra 0.4 is worth it for De Gea. He's still got that extra double game week coming up, and he does have a great balance of save and clean sheet potential, unlike Alisson and Edison. So I think that's another thing De Gea's got going for him. And not only does he have a double game week, he's got really good single game week fixtures as well. West Ham's one of them, Wolves at home, and Fulham at home are the 2 others. So 3 extremely good single game week fixtures for picking up clean sheets. And of course, when you combine those with the double game week as well, I wouldn't be surprised to see De Gea be the highest scoring goalkeeper for the rest of the season. So even if you're looking to use a transfer to bring in De Gea, I like this move. Jump on a really good informed Manchester United defence with a double game week and really good single game week fixtures coming up. For me, De Gea is my favourite goalkeeper option. Looking towards the defenders, it's a fairly template back 3, I suppose you could say. Obviously, Kieran Trippier being the most popular pick right now, with around a 75% ownership inside the top 10,000 managers. Luke Shaw, on the other hand, only has a 48% ownership inside the top 10,000 managers, so a little bit more differential. Not quite fully template yet amongst the best FPL managers in the game, but definitely could be a good player to jump on now, as his ownership is only around 30% to the from around the 100 to 300k mark. So not massive right now, and I think he's going to be a good defender to jump on at a decent price to capitalise on that really good Manchester United defensive form that I touched on with De Gea. Of course, Luke Shaw has a lot more attacking potential than a couple of those other Manchester United defenders. He is playing in more of a centre-back role right now, which isn't ideal for getting goals and assists, but he still can get forward. He still played in this position earlier on in the season and found himself getting forward, picking up goals and assists. So I think Luke Shaw is still a very good option. He's coming off 7 points in his first fixture of double game week 34, got a bonus point in that game, so I think Luke Shaw is going to be a really good defender option to own for the rest of the season for all the reasons that I mentioned with De Gea. Great single game week and double game week fixtures coming up. And Estupinian, also a fairly template pick. He's not massively owned, but I really like him as a Brighton asset. It's going to be interesting to see how people play their Brighton assets for the rest of the season. Obviously, with a lot of rotation in their first fixture amongst midfielders in double game week 34 Brighton, we saw March, Matoma, McAllister all get significantly reduced minutes to the 80 to 90 minutes they are accustomed to getting. So I think that could provide a little bit of doubt in terms of if you're tripling up on Brighton, is it worth going for double Brighton defence and then a single Brighton attacker, or you want to still go for 2 of those Brighton attackers and just have 1 defender? I think Brighton's defence still worthwhile jumping on nonetheless. I'd look to have at least 1 Brighton defender, and for me, Estupinian definitely my favourite option. By far the most attacking, gets really good positioning throughout the games. Picked himself up an assist in his most recent double game week fixture as well, picked up 9 points in in his first fixture of Game Week 34. He picked himself obviously an assist, as I said, but could have had a lot more goals as well. Got forward for 2 one-on-one chances, couldn't take either of these chances, but the point is he's getting into good positions, making some good runs, and over time you would expect him to start converting those chances. So I really like Estupiñán, a great balance of clean sheet and attacking potential. I think triple Brighton is definitely necessary. It just depends on whether you want one Brighton defender, and Estupiñán would be the player I'd go for, or you go for double Brighton defense and just a single Brighton attacker, but we'll discuss that a little bit later on in the team as well. Looking to the midfielders now, as you can see here, a fairly template midfield. Rashford, of course, being one of the more popular options in this midfield. But there are a couple of good moves that you could look to make this midfield a lot stronger and target more double game weeks for the rest of the season. I will touch on that in just a second. Marcus Rashford does compete at Manchester United triple up. I definitely think triple up at Manchester United has been not spoken about massively. I think it could be really underrated for the rest of the season. They've got really good fixtures, as I touched on: West Ham, Wolves, Fulham, 3 great single game week fixtures. Then they've got that double game week as well. Marcus Rashford, a player that's really found some form in his last 3 to 4 game weeks as well, so I like him from that standpoint. His ownership over 80% inside the top 10k managers, so clearly extremely popular amongst the best FPL managers in the game. And I would say him and Haaland, in my opinion, are the only 2 100% absolutely necessary players to have in your guys' teams for the rest of the season. So if you don't already have Marcus Rashford in, definitely worthwhile bringing him in, at least on a transfer, as he is going to be massively hurting your rank if you don't have him in your side. Mo Salah as well, he's been a great touch for Liverpool recently. He's been in some really, really good home form, so that's why I have opted to keep him in the Game Week 35 wildcard side ahead of Kevin De Bruyne. I could have gone for De Bruyne for Game Week 35. He's got a great fixture of Leeds at home with slight injury concerns, and Mo Salah's superb home form at Anfield. I want to hold Salah for Game Week 35, and then maybe, even if you are a Salah owner and you don't have a wild card, look to make that move to De Bruyne Game Week 36 or 37 on a transfer. It's probably something that I'm going to look to do in my team, especially to target that Manchester City double game week. I think that's when going for De Bruyne over Salah is going to be most beneficial, as Salah obviously been a lot more consistent in his point scoring and minutes across the season. Been in really good touch recently. He's started to get a lot more goals and assists, which we do expect from Mo Salah, which were a little bit absent at the start of the season, but he's coming back into some really, really good form for Liverpool. He did convert a penalty in his last game in Game Week 34, which is good to see, after I did own him actually for his 2 penalty misses throughout the year. So that was a big sigh of relief when he did convert that penalty there. So I think Mo Salah, a really good option for Game Week 35. I was initially going to have De Bruyne, but after a couple of pieces of information that have been developed in Game Week 34, I think holding Salah for Game Week 35 could be the best way forward. Speaking of Man City assets though, Jack Grealish is a player that I really, really like. Very unlucky not to have more points in his first fixture of double Game Week 34. Had a really good couple of chances against Fulham, both saved fairly well by Leno. Had that chance which he tipped onto the crossbar, could have easily gone in on any other day, and then Jack Grealish would be a much more favourable option, just coming off that goal in Game Week 34. But I still really, really like him, getting into some good positions, which he didn't quite show earlier on in the season. So I think that's one of the things that has changed mainly for Jack Grealish in the last 5 to 6 game weeks, which has allowed him to pick up more FPL points. It's just putting himself in better positions, and I think with Man City's good fixtures, including that double game week coming up, Leeds at home coming up in Game Week 35 as well, having Jack Grealish in the team is going to be a really, really wise decision. The other good thing with Jack Grealish is that, in my opinion, has a lot more solidarity in terms of starting minutes compared to those other Man City wingers in Mahrez, Foden and Bernardo Silva as well. Those 3 guys have seen a lot more rotation than Jack Grealish this season, so that's also another string that Jack Grealish has to his bow in terms of being a good FPL asset. And the midfield is rounded out with Solly March. As I touched on, you could go for a double up in Brighton midfield, or you could just go for the single option. If I was going to go for only one pick, I actually would go for Solly March. He's got some of the best underlying numbers out of any Brighton midfielder across this season, and for me has been the most consistent point scorer across the year as well. Obviously after the World Cup break, Matoma absolutely exploded, saying that though March was also very, very good since the World Cup break. Has just been consistently ticking over those FPL points, and I think he's going to be a good option to own with not as high ownership as Mitoma for the remainder of the FPL season. Everton at home coming up, game week 35 is a great fixture, and I think with Brighton's 2 extra double game weeks, you're going to need at least a triple up on Brighton. You can't have anything less, and March is my favourite midfielder asset from Brighton, so I like him. Everton at home is a really good fixture for him. Looking to the forwards, it's a fairly differential forward line. Actually, I think the forward line is where this wildcard team gets a lot more differential. Obviously, Grealish is a solid differential midfield. I think Shaw's a decent differential in defence, and De Gea a pretty solid differential keeper. But for me, Kane and Isak could be 2 massive differentials in the forward line. Obviously, Erling Haaland, he's compulsory, as I touched on. Him and Marcus Rashford, the only 2 absolutely compulsory players for the rest of the season. But I think Kane and Isak, 2 players with a very low ownership that could be really good assets to own for the rest of the season. We've seen a lot of popular forward options drop away in terms of ownership in recent weeks, and the forward line template of Watkins, Toney, Haaland has definitely fallen away quite dramatically. Watkins has been very heavily sold recently. Toney's been very heavily sold recently. Kane has been extremely heavily sold recently, as has Gabriel Jesus as well. So a lot of these really popular forward options that a lot of people had in their teams, and there wasn't much differential plays in the forward line, now have dropped off, and I think it's time to try and mix up that forward line, go with a couple of punts, and Kane and Isak, 2 options that I really like. Kane only has an 18% ownership right now inside the top 10,000 managers, so despite being a really high FPL point scorer this season, doesn't have a massive ownership for his last 4 fixtures. Obviously, they are all single game fixtures, but I do think Kane will be the second highest scoring forward for the rest of the season, and potentially the second highest scoring premium as well, potentially outscoring Salah and De Bruyne for the rest of the year. Just with the form that Kane's in and the fixtures that Spurs have got, I think he's going to be superb to have in the sides for his last 4 game weeks. His hardest fixture for the rest of the season was Liverpool, which was last week. Got himself a goal in that fixture and 2 bonus points as well. So for me, Kane is an excellent differential forward to have in your guys' teams. Really good form, really good fixtures. Obviously a very clinical player as well. Yes, he is a little bit expensive. So if you can't afford a triple up on premiums, then maybe you couldn't quite get Haaland to your team. Kane into your team. But I really do think Kane is worth it. If you can make it happen, drop down a couple of bench plays to be able to afford Harry Kane. I think he's going to be a guy that can really increase your guys' ranks for the rest of the year. The other forward that I wanted to discuss was Isak. I think he's going to be a really good differential as well. This could easily be Callum Wilson, as Isak and Wilson, both with the double game week and game week 36, obviously. They've both been in really good form. The only thing that I say Isak has the advantage of a Wilson for is I think he's got a slightly higher chance of playing more minutes for the rest of the season compared to Wilson, who, despite I think is going to get less minutes than Isak, has been putting up extremely good underlying numbers and has been extremely clinical in recent weeks. Looking at Wilson's underlying stats, 15 goals for the season. He now has the second highest expected goals per 90 out of any player in the Premier League this season that has played 1,000 minutes. Obviously, that stat is only bettered by Erling Haaland. So for a player of less than 7 million, this is extremely good underlying numbers. 0.75 XG per 90 for Callum Wilson is very strong. So I think he's going to be a really good option as well. I definitely wouldn't discourage people from going for Wilson over Isak. Saying that though, Isak does have the 7th highest expected goals per 90 amongst all players in FPL that have played 1,000 minutes this year, which is also a very good number. Not quite as good as Callum Wilson though, at 2nd amongst all players, but I still think either having Isak or Wilson could be a great way to mix it up in the forward line, go for a more differential punt and capitalise on a good Newcastle double game week in game week 36. There have been 2 really strong informed forwards. Both of them have scored over 21 points in the last 3 game weeks, so I like both of those assets as good forward options. As I touched on, of course, Erling Haaland, the only compulsory player in this team along with Marcus Rashford that I think everyone should be having in their sides for the rest of the season. Leeds at home this week as well is a really good fixture to slap the captain's armband on Haaland, and you can pretty much just chuck him on captaincy for the rest of the season and not really worry too much about it. Looking to the bench, I think when you're looking at the bench, it's all about minimizing the value of players on the bench, trying to go for some really cheap options, free up a little bit of money around the squad, especially with this team being triple premiums. You're going to need to spend as little money on the bench as possible. Obviously, with a lot of people bench boosting as well, I think they should be able to drop down players on their bench, which will be a little bit more expensive, to a few more cheaper options to be able to afford those upgrades to the starting 11. As as of course at this time in the season, having a strong bench is not as important. It's all about having a very, very strong starting 11. So that's why Turner is the sub goalkeeper here. Yes, he plays for Arsenal, and it's not ideal having a sub goalkeeper from a team with good FPL assets from, but for me, Arsenal don't have any good FPL assets for the rest of the season. All single game week fixtures for the Gunners, and I think there are a lot more better options, should I say, with better double game week fixtures, or just with double game week fixtures for the rest of the season. So 3.8 as well for the cheapest keeper in the game. Turner is definitely a good pick. Mitoma as well, he completes a Brighton triple up. I do think, as I touched on, a triple up for Brighton is absolutely necessary, with still 2 double game weeks to go for them for the rest of the season. Even if Mitoma isn't starting, he's going to outscore a lot of players just by playing in each of the 2 fixtures of the double. He's going to pick up 4 points just from playing. Hopefully there isn't too much more rotation in that Brighton side as well, and hopefully De Zerbi does try and play their strongest possible team every single week, as Brighton do push for European places. And of course Mitoma, he's been one of their top goal scorers this season. He's been in superb form. So I'm thinking Mitoma in March. For me, I'm still keen on the Brighton double up on attack. I just have the one Brighton defender right now in Estupiñán, as I think that Brighton side has so many goals in them, and March and Mitoma have been 2 extremely good midfielders since the World Cup break. So I still like both of those guys. Obviously Mitoma a good option for double game week 36 and double game week 37. Speaking of double game week 36 though, Botman is also in this team to complete a Newcastle triple up. A lot of people will only have Trippier as their Newcastle asset, so by having Isak and Botman, you have triple Newcastle for double game week 36. When you combine that with the triple Brighton in this team for double game week 36, you're going to have so many players doubling in that game week, which will definitely give you that extra opportunity of taking a really solid green arrow. So I like Botman as well with the Newcastle triple up there. And Bueno in the third bench position, he's coming in at a very, very cheap price as well. Has now started each of the last 2 games for Wolves. Obviously Wolves weren't great in their 6-0 loss to Brighton, but in the previous week Bueno was able to get himself a clean sheet and a bonus point. Once again, you're probably not going to play Bueno that much for the rest of the season. He's just in there to spend as little money as you can on the bench to prioritize having triple premiums and a very strong team as well in your starting 11. So that's pretty much the team right now. I really like this side. 102.5 squad value should be fairly affordable for most managers. If you can't, as a touchdown, you could drop De Gea down to Kepa, or you could drop down a couple of those other Brighton lads. Maybe you wanted to drop down Mitoma to Gross. I still do recommend Mitoma though. I think this having Brighton, Man City, Man U, Newcastle assets, definitely the way forward for the rest of the season. Salah and Kane obviously being the exceptions with a single game week fixture for the rest of the year, but apart from those 2 guys that have been in superb form and I think will be necessary to have despite not doubling, it's all about having the rest of the players that do have double game weeks for the rest of the year. Obviously Brighton still have 2 doubles, Manchester United have the extra double, Man City have that extra double, and Newcastle have that double in game week 36. So I think this squad definitely does account for that and maximizes the amount of double game weeks that you guys can have for the rest of the season, whilst also having a good mix of template and differential options. Obviously Kane, Isak, Grealish, Luke Shaw, De Gea, all solid differential options. And then of course you have those template picks. You got De Bruyne, Salah, Trippier, Marcus Rashford as well. So I think it's a really good balance. Let me know what you guys think of this wildcard team. And of course, as I said, you don't have to have this exact team. You could just look to get a couple of players from this side to get into your squads, as I think every single player in this wildcard squad, apart from a couple of those bench options, will be good assets to own in your FPL team, even if you're just using transfers. Thanks for watching today's wildcard template team. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, drop a like and subscribe. We are trying to hit 12,000 subscribers by the end of the season, which is only a few game weeks away. So please help us reach that goal. As always, have those notification bells turned on, as there is going to be plenty more FPL videos coming your guys' way. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one.